Hello, Galaxy! I'm Chris Perillo, and I have been enjoying myself with iOS 16. I know that sounds a little weird, given that yesterday I told you about the things that annoyed me about iOS 16. A lot of those are features that annoy me about iOS in general, but I gotta tell you, that list is seemingly getting shorter by the year. What I'm saying is, iOS is definitely coming into its own post iOS 7. That does not necessarily mean that I'm in love with the experience, because there are still many things that keep me from using an iPhone as a go-to phone, as a go-to device. I'm still very much in a completely separate camp. That said, I can definitely appreciate the features and additions that Apple has put into iOS 16, and for a 0.0 release, it's solid. I mean, this is just it's been impressive to the point where, as I remarked in my initial impressions, it seems that it's more responsive than previous versions of iOS have been, specifically like the at launch post beta, but certainly more responsive than iOS 15. That's not really a feature; it's more like an implementation, and hopefully more optimizations will come down the pike. So, the thing that I really want to state about features is there are a few, and if you looked at it in totality, like it seems like a never-ending list, and a lot of small pieces, but the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that's how I would succinctly state my feeling about iOS 16, and that's a great whole. Because these small features that Apple has implemented within their default apps, you don't necessarily think about them until you need to use them. Small features, like if you use the mail client, you could you undo send. You could even tweak how long you have before you can undo a send, from 10 seconds to, I think, 30 seconds. So they've added those small things that you need when you need them, but you don't realize you need them until you need them, if you use Apple's default apps. And honestly, some of them I use, some of them I don't use. So a lot of the features they added are kind of lost on me. That said, I really feel iOS 16 is probably, I don't want to say the best iOS release since iOS 7, but that's true. From my perspective, very true. A lot of incremental changes, but they are very smart updates that will hopefully continue to be refined as far as user experience is concerned. I've kind of given up on the idea of the user interface changing anytime soon. The number one feature that just leaps out at me is a feature that I'm going to be using daily. So I need to make thumbnails for these YouTube videos, and I suck at thumbnails, right? I'm getting help. Or possibly getting help. I've talked to a designer friend, a mod from our Twitch channel, Fix Him Dude, to possibly help with some thumbnails. But in the camera, and I'm sorry, I was getting ready to double tap the power button to open the camera, and I realized I'm not using an Android device. It's so seamless, you don't even realize it's a feature. So I just took a picture of myself, right? The selfie. If I tap and hold, it creates, did you see that thing happen? I tap and hold, and then it creates myself as a floating object, and I can actually drag and drop it between other open apps. But instead of doing that, I can copy or I can share it. And what I've decided to do more often than not is share it to Notes, because then I can get it on my Mac desktop. And it basically cuts out the background instantaneously, which is amazing. I've tried several apps with background removal, and they work okay, and I'm not saying that Apple's works, better or worse than others, but the fact that it's integrated and it's seamless and it's maybe not as intuitive as you'd think. You wouldn't know to tap on, an object, and I'm saying that because it's not just people. Like I took a picture of the AT-AT driver and it pulled it right out, and it did an amazing job, even in a low light situation. Plus, that feature, being able to copy objects out of photos, also works with photos not taken on the iPhone. So I'm going to be using that for my thumbnails, because it's easy for me to make a facial expression. I can run through them in no time flat. And in capturing a photo and being able to pull it out, I don't want to mess with software if I don't need to. And those are the small changes that Apple's made, which makes it a more complete device. Another thing that I like, another feature that I like that I've been accustomed to, again on Android, is haptic feedback with the iPhone keyboard. I still don't like the iPhone keyboard, but haptic feedback is really nice, especially if you don't know if the stroke has been registered, or I guess the tap has been registered. Can I call it a stroke? If I'm not having one, when you're typing with your thumbs on the keyboard, you can turn on the haptic feedback. I would absolutely recommend it. It would be worth a battery hit, unless you're all about optimizing battery. Me, not so much. I have battery life to spare. Just for that haptic feedback in the touch. It means a lot, and it really goes a long way as far as a user experience is concerned. Another feature that everyone's been talking about, and for good reason, the lock screen, the lock screen customization. They're actually working on a way to improve the user experience so that you can change the experience on the lock screen versus your home screen. But having those widgets there is amazing. And the fact that so many third parties are already adopting that is awesome. But it's also a problem because, I would want to add so many different widgets there. Of course, it would be overrun with information. It's not giving me enough. I need more. I need more widgets. Like these small little, these little complications, right? That's what I really want to call them, because they remind me of Apple Watch complications. But I really like the fact that there is more customization on the lock screen. The fact that you can use the widgets, and I'm serious. I love the astronomy wallpaper. Because at a moment's notice, I'm like, oh, there are the clouds. Okay, we got some clouds coming in. Here I am in Seattle, and I even set it as my home screen. Usually, honestly, this is me. I'm a black wallpaper kind of person, but this was just too cool to pass up, honestly. So the lock screen customization is a fantastic feature. I think it is absolutely one of the best features of iOS 16, because you use the lock screen all the time, and it's going to be even better when you have an always on display, as I have also become accustomed to over the past, I don't know how many years I've had this. So welcome aboard, Apple. I'm glad you finally have it, because all your users will absolutely appreciate it. Another feature that you may not realize is there, but I would use all the time, would be auto-punctuation by way of dictation. This surprised me. I was doing some testing, because it's been a while since I did the voice dictation. I love the way Google Pixel does its voice dictation, and Apple's kind of always been on the not great side of things, but they must have done something, because dictation worked really well in my tests, in just talking. And I would stop, and it would throw in commas, it would throw in periods. I'm like, what? I love those kinds of surprises. I love what? It did that? That's magic. Those are the things, those are the features that get me excited. It's not the chamfered edges, it's not the glass, it's the small. What? It could do that? I had no idea. I love those features. So if you've not tried dictation in a while, give it a shot. The auto punctuation is a must-have, especially if you're like me and you're just blah, 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 and I just forget the punctuation because it's not worth it. I'll just hit send. The fact that it does it for you is awesome. No longer can I say duck you autocorrect, or at least for the time being. But it seems that Apple has upped its dictation game. Hopefully next year Siri will continue to improve, and notifications will also improve. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about the things that annoy me. I'm going to go back to the features that I absolutely adore, that I think are great, the best features. You can do foreground blur in portrait photos. Now, portrait photos for me, I've long said, have kind of been gimmicky, because quite honestly, they don't really work all that well. I wouldn't say that the copying the object out of a photo feels gimmicky. It works. Is it perfect? No, but portrait mode there's a lot of hit and misses. There's also a lot of hit and misses with the pulling out of objects too. But for some reason, I would rather have a clean photo than a portrait mode that just kind of looks junky on the side, because something happened with the hair, or in an area underneath the armpit got a little weird. But for those of you who like portrait mode, some of you swear by it, you can now do foreground blur. So just an interesting way of adding a different level, like a depth of field type of effect. So I thought that was an interesting addition if you haven't tried it. Live captions in FaceTime. This is interesting, especially in group calls that you might be participating in. I can count on no hands how many FaceTime calls I've been on in the past 2 or 3 years. Still, having live captions during a live phone call right there on your screen, I think is wonderful. I mean, if only for accessibility reasons. There are scenarios where I wish I had something like that. Maybe not in FaceTime specifically, but a feature like that I feel would be incredibly handy. Another feature that I used today surprised me and is actually something that you should consider doing. In Photos, you can now remove duplicates. Now, I don't know if that feature is also going to make its way to macOS. It should. But you can remove duplicates from your iCloud library, all your photos. So you deduplicate. And I knew I had duplicates. I wasn't going to track them all down. I don't know how many gigs I saved today. I saved gigs clearing out photos. In fact, it even recognized, hey, this photo is, this size, this photo was this size. They look exactly the same, but they're different sizes. Do you want to duplicate those types of photos? So I went through, I cleared them all out. Cleared out all the duplicates. So I ended up getting a cleaner library. Do not sleep on deduplication. You no longer need to use a third-party tool. Apple implemented that feature extremely well. Speaking of photos, they also made an addition to be able to copy and paste photo edits, in a batch capacity, as well as changing metadata within Photos, making it very simple. Like the Photos app is getting better, and I mean in a measurable way. As far as I'm concerned, this is something like, ooh, yeah, Google Photos needs that. And that's a good thing. I like saying such and such needs that, because that tells me I really like that feature. If I want that feature to be in the product that I happen to use for the reasons that I need to be using it. Another feature that I haven't had a chance to use but would come in handy is important for families. Device setup for kids has been streamlined. It wasn't as bad, just this past year in setting up an iPad for Jedi to use. She used it for homeschooling for a brief while, and I had her on the iPad because it just worked. It was just simple. It worked. I wish that Apple would set up multi-user accounts. I don't think they're going to do that because they like selling their hardware. But having a better manageable system for families is a boon. And I think Apple did, the right thing, at least in making it easier for parents to be able to manage what happens on a child's device, specifically from setup and beyond. So there are a lot of great features, and I'm not even going to come close to listing them all. You probably have your own favorite feature, and I'm still discovering them too. I'm still, you could do that? I didn't realize. Oh, you can hide the search button on the home screen. You just go to the home screen options and settings. I was told that by a few of the people who are watching me do this on Twitch. So I'm just going to wrap up in saying that the dynamic islands, as opposed to the static peninsula, as termed, I believe, by Kurt Grosser, the dynamic island, I feel, is going to be, I'm not going to say a paradigm shift. It is going to be something that's not critical, but a software addition that will be moving forward, maybe not indefinitely, but adopted. I feel it's going to be adopted. I just truly believe it's not a gimmick. I feel it's going to work. Even at a distance, it was the right thing to do. It's what should have happened in the first place, taking this hardware limitation and baking software around it so that it's a better experience for everyone. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what developers do with that in the future. And it seems like, they'll get their hands on the API to be able to do that sooner rather than later. So those of you who have iOS 16 on an iPhone that has a dynamic island setup, I think you're going to be even happier. So kudos to Apple, honestly. I mean, I still have my iOS complaints, a mile long, but this was a solid release.